Hello, my name is Mark Titterington and welcome to another edition of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture's Food Systems podcast. Earlier this year at our annual conference, my colleague Alex Turk had the opportunity to interview some of our fantastic speakers. So sit back and enjoy some of the interesting insights and takeaways that we were able to take from this year's annual conference. Alex, over to you.
Well, Janez Potočnik, who probably needs no introduction, but I will give it anyway, former two-term European Commissioner, long-time friend and chairman both of the Forum and of the RISE Foundation. The Forum, of course, looks for strategic, joined-up, practical answers to the core questions in the agri-food sector. And this is the 17th Forum. Now, the progress report from the regions this year, I'd love to hear your thoughts there, but also you have a new advisory council. And why is that important, Janez?
Actually, indeed, 17th, and I think I'm chairing it 10 years now. But I was attending it a few times more because I have attended it also as Commissioner for Environment. I think slowly, steadily, we are going in the direction which we designed. So getting more from agriculture to the food systems, more from European to the global perspective. Of course, taking into consideration the reality which is changing around us. And the committee which you mentioned, it's of course twofold. One is to strengthen our understanding, perspectives, and basically to help us also to design the future of the forum, the future of the things on which we would need to focus. So simply more heads, more ideas, and if those heads are even specialists from the areas which could help, I think that is better. So I think it was a good step, and we certainly count that this will contribute even to a more fruitful debates and to the right direction which we will take with the forum.
You have the call to action that started in 2023 with the 7 commitments. You said it was to put a mirror in front of ourselves to deliver systematic change. And you talked about a Slovenian philosopher in your opening comments this morning. Yes. About changing the system. This seemed to be an absolute focus for you for this forum.
It is indeed. I think it's important to understand that the times in which we are living are quite challenging. And lots of things are happening which are making things unpredictable, including for the food system. And all the attention which currently in the policy space go more to competitiveness, security, fairness, it's absolutely necessary. But at the same time, we should not forget that in the last few years, from the time when European Green Deal was adopted, the reality also in environmental space didn't move to better. So I think it's critically important that we integrate those things together and that we understand that only if we will simultaneously look at all those elements that we can actually find the right solutions. One of the speakers was actually giving to Stephen the Rubik Cube. But that's exactly an example which I'm using whenever I speak about the systemic change and approach. So when you try to put the cube together, if you follow just one interest, let's say competitiveness, and you fix one side and let the other side unfixed, this will not solve the problem. Yeah. So you need to think systematically, and I think Rubik Cube is an excellent example how one can do that.
We, of course, talk about the thread of sustainability very importantly running all the way through this. Yeah. And when you look at the future vision published in February by Commissioner Hansen, is that focus? I know there are all the sides of the Rubik's Cube, but that has to be a golden thread running through all of this, or a focus as you get all the sides in the right color. I mean,
sustainability, it's not only about environment. Sustainability, it's about the balance of our lives.
Yes.
And you need to take into consideration practically all things from the social, economic, environmental angle. And I think it's important that simply you always keep that in mind, because if you would ask me, the easiest way to answer why the things needs to be sustainable in the future, it's otherwise they will be unsustainable. So it's common sense. So we simply need to try to think in that way. I was actually also during my term as Environment Commissioner introducing the circular economy logic, but circular economy logic, it's simply using common sense, you know. It's nature, it's all based on circular logic. Nothing in nature is lost, everything has its purpose, you know. And the only serious question behind is, are we humans part of nature? And if we are part of nature, why do we not behave accordingly?
I mean, when we look at resource use being at the heart of what you describe as the triple threat of crisis, planetary crisis, climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution, then today you also zoned in on water stress as a particular important area to look at safeguarding.
Indeed, I think it's very important thing which we see and face in our daily lives, and it's terribly important also for the people sitting in the forum, because according to science, first time in the human generation we have actually witnessed that the water cycle is out of balance, which means more floods, more fires, more everything, more extreme weather events, and all those extreme weather events we have to understand that farmers are in the front line, and they will in the first place cause economic costs and other quality life costs to them. And of course, they have all the right and we have moral duty to help anybody who is hit by those extreme weather events. But we cannot expect that if water cycle is out of balance, that the things will soon get better. So indeed, we are in a way fixing with our behavior today the reality of the future generations. For our generation, we are a bit late to fix it. So, but this responsibility is certainly in the air, because as parents, if we think anything long-term, is how to actually provide a long-term quality of life for our kids, for our grandchildren. But sometimes when we go then to our daily lives, to our economic, which is driving our behavior, we somehow think till tomorrow, till next day, till next year.
It's the citizen-consumer conundrum, isn't it? Morally, we would like to choose better,
Yeah.
you know, food at the price it deserves, but we think with our wallet when we get to the checkout.
Exactly. It's simply that the market incentives are not rewarding responsible behavior, and these market incentives simply need to change. They are not rewarding responsible behavior, not of the consumers, as you mentioned, but also not of the producers. So it's obviously something wrong there in the market incentives.
And you always talk about values, Janez, as well. So, you know, social inequality in its widest context being one of the most important, having an important environmental impact. We talked about it being 1 minute to midnight when we look at, at the threats that are there, and they are existential. There are some that are very man-made, if we look across the Atlantic, perhaps. Yeah. And yet, you've said that progress is slow. Yeah. And I wonder, you know, we must be less than 1 minute to midnight, you know, when we look at the way we breached the 1.5 degrees rising temperatures, when we look at, you know, the global warming in over 100,000 years at its maximum. So what's your message to try and speed up progress?
We humans do react if we see something as serious and if we are feared of the consequences. Typically was the COVID example. Now we see it when we have security threats. We obviously don't see climate yet as 1 minute to midnight. We see that the things are happening, but the effects of those happenings are actually more or less already to us now, but unfortunately they are not irreparable quickly. And that's what we have to be aware. And I think I'm normally closing my presentations always with a quote from the most famous Belgian Hercule Poirot, the detective, as you know. He was once asked why he's speaking about himself in a third person, and his reply was something like that: if somebody is so intelligent like myself, you need to establish a healthy distance to yourself. And I think that's exactly what is the challenge for our generation, establishing a healthy distance. We are not the first, we are not the last, we are not the only one, and let us consider that in that way and take that responsibility seriously.
And we had, of course, a NASA astronaut opening our session, Mike Massimino, who said it's all about the mission and that there's nowhere else out there. It is about being citizens of the Earth. Janez, I know you always say the future will be green or there will be no future at all, but I'm sure you're going to say it again to the forum today.
Yeah, it's all about the mission, but a bit it's also about emission. So yes, indeed, I think we should never forget that it's actually the optimistic people who are changing the world. And we need to keep that optimism, but at the same time defend the truth and be clear about the messages which we are receiving from science, because nowadays it's a bit difficult to be science-based and optimistic, if I'm honest.
Well, we'll leave it on a balanced note, I guess, but a truth nonetheless. Janez Potočnik, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the forum.
Thank you, it was a pleasure,
today.
like always.
Thank you.
You've been listening to another edition of the Food Systems Podcast, brought to you by the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. Join us again next time.